Well, buenas tardes y bienvenidos a todos. En nombre de Andalucía Trade, muchas gracias por responder a esta convocatoria para participar en este webinario que hemos titulado Oportunidades para el sector agroalimentario en Estados Unidos y Canadá. En primer lugar, por supuesto, muchas gracias a los ponentes, especialmente a Jaime Palafox, colaborador de esta casa desde hace muchos años, desde que era director de Asuntos Económicos y de Internacionalización de FIAP, y sin el cual pues, este webinario no podría haber tenido lugar, ¿no? Gracias también, por supuesto, a nuestros dos invitados estrella, que son Jody Hall y Mike Ricciardi, que los va a presentar después Jaime. Thank you so much, Jody and Mike. Merci bien. It's a great honor for us to have you here today. Thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. Okay, I will go on in Spanish. Okay, with the welcome remarks, since all the audience is in Spanish. Okay, but feel free to talk in any language that you prefer. Okay. Y por último, también en el apartado de agradecimientos, gracias también, por supuesto, a mis compañeros, a nuestros compañeros, a Michael Whiting, que es el director de nuestra oficina de Andalucía Trade Nueva York, y a Usía Vázquez, que es la directora de nuestra oficina en Canadá. Está ubicada en Toronto. Como digo, muchas gracias a todos. Bueno, pues no es casual que estemos hoy aquí organizando este webinario sobre el sector agro, un sector que es prioritario para Andalucía, por supuesto para Andalucía Trade, para nuestra agencia, en estos dos mercados tan estratégicos como son Estados Unidos y Canadá, y además en estos momentos de transición y de cambio, como todo el mundo sabe, y con tantas incógnitas abiertas, ¿no? La importancia del sector agroalimentario en Estados Unidos y Canadá queda de manifiesto, por supuesto, en las exportaciones andaluzas a estos dos mercados, ¿no? Desde enero a noviembre del 2024, que son los últimos datos disponibles que hay, Andalucía exportó a Estados Unidos más de 1.200 millones en productos agroalimentarios. Esto es un 48% más que en el mismo periodo del año anterior. Andalucía es además la comunidad española que más exporta a Estados Unidos con diferencia. Un 44% de todo lo que exporta España sale desde aquí, desde Andalucía. Estados Unidos es, por lo tanto, el cuarto destino más importante de nuestras exportaciones agroalimentarias, solo por detrás de Alemania, Francia e Italia. Y en cuanto a Canadá, también en el mismo periodo, de enero a noviembre del 2024, Andalucía exportó productos agroalimentarios a Canadá por valor de más de 107 millones de euros. Esto es un 31% más que en el mismo periodo del año anterior, por lo cual estamos y seguimos creciendo en las exportaciones. Aquí Andalucía, de nuevo, es la comunidad española que más exporta a Canadá, con diferencia. Esta ocasión hace un 35% del total de las exportaciones españolas provienen de Andalucía. ¿Vale? Aquí en el ranking internacional de mercados, Canadá ocupa la posición 20ª. ¿Vale? Está un poquito más atrás, pero aún así está dentro de los 20 mercados más interesantes para el sector aquí en Andalucía. Bueno, de cualquier forma, y a pesar de todo lo que se está haciendo, hay muchísimas más oportunidades, y el objetivo de este webinario justamente es este, ¿no? Explorar todas esas oportunidades que ofrecen estos dos mercados y analizar de qué forma pues, se pueden beneficiar las empresas andaluzas. En cuanto al programa de hoy, comentar que posiblemente en este primer bloque nos vamos a extender un poco más, porque le hemos pedido a Jaime Palafox que nos haga una presentación, aprovechando pues su gran experiencia y su interesante visión del mercado. Así que posiblemente nos vamos a alargar un poco más en este primer bloque, como digo, y el segundo y tercer bloque va a ser un poquito más pequeño, ¿vale? Lo que aparece en el programa. De todas maneras, lo vamos a hacer así, vamos a intentar obviamente pues terminar a tiempo según el programa, ¿vale? Yo sin más, espero que el webinario sea del interés de todos y les cedo ya la palabra a mi compañero Michael Whiting, director de la oficina de Andalucía Trade Nueva York. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias, Benito. Muchas gracias a todos. Bueno, buenos días desde Nueva York. Buenas tardes en Andalucía. Gracias nuevamente a todos los asistentes por vuestro interés. Efectivamente, mi nombre es Michael Bittin y soy el director de la oficina de Andalucía Trade de Nueva York. Y es un placer tener la oportunidad de comentar de manera concreta, para no alargarnos mucho, la situación actual de las exportaciones de productos agroalimentarios a Estados Unidos y, obviamente, la influencia que el nuevo mandato de Donald Trump puede tener en estas exportaciones. ¿De acuerdo? Bueno, lo primero que me gustaría resaltar es que Estados Unidos, como ya decía Benito, es un mercado muy estratégico para Andalucía. Es el primer mercado, es el principal mercado no europeo y el quinto mercado mundial en importancia para las exportaciones andaluzas en general. ¿De acuerdo? Y en particular, hablando de los productos agroalimentarios, importante destacar que Estados Unidos ha registrado un crecimiento de un 48%, con respecto al año anterior. También lo comentaba antes Benito. Por lo tanto, podemos decir que estamos en el mejor momento de las exportaciones de productos agroalimentarios andaluces a Estados Unidos. También podemos comentar que los productos con mayor volumen de exportación a Estados Unidos en 2024 fueron el aceite de oliva, que es el primer producto exportado con 807 millones de euros, con un crecimiento de un 64% con respecto a 2023. Estamos hablando de cifras de récord. Al aceite de oliva le siguen hortalizas y sus preparados y frutas con una facturación de 160 millones de euros, que representa un crecimiento de un 29% con respecto a 2023. Dentro de este apartado podemos comentar que se encuentran las exportaciones de aceituna de mesa, que han registrado un crecimiento de casi un 25% con respecto a 2023. Así que, como vemos, son cifras muy positivas, cifras que muestran niveles de crecimiento récord en Estados Unidos. Y también me gustaría comentar que Andalucía Trade cuenta con 3 oficinas en Estados Unidos. Como sabéis, estamos presentes en Miami, en Los Ángeles y en Nueva York, y el sector agroalimentario es uno de los más activos en nuestras oficinas. De hecho, ahora mismo, estos días, estamos trabajando en varias acciones del sector, como por ejemplo en una misión comercial que se va a desarrollar en Puerto Rico en las próximas semanas, un sondeo de mercado, un store check, y en los próximos meses organizaremos misiones comerciales del sector en diferentes zonas de Estados Unidos. Así que, por supuesto, desde aquí os animamos a todas las empresas que estáis presentes en la audiencia a que participéis en las acciones que Andalucía Trade realiza en Estados Unidos destinadas al sector agroalimentario. Bueno, y dada la situación, como comentaba Benito, es inevitable hablar de la incidencia que puede tener el nuevo mandato de Trump en las exportaciones de alimentos andaluces a Estados Unidos. He tenido la oportunidad de hablar en varios foros últimamente y yo siempre quiero mantener un mensaje optimista, y pensar que los temidos aranceles van a ser más un instrumento de negociación más que una barrera permanente, ¿de acuerdo? Y en mi opinión, siempre digo que Trump es sobre todo un hombre de negocios y como tal siempre busca el mejor acuerdo, siempre busca la mejor oportunidad. Y además, uno de sus objetivos primordiales es que la economía de Estados Unidos crezca, siga creciendo, está en un buen momento, pero quiere que siga creciendo y por lo tanto quiere que el americano medio tenga más poder adquisitivo y más poder de compra. Y por supuesto que hay riesgo e incertidumbre ante una subida de aranceles. Pero si la subida es grande y generalizada, esto puede provocar una reducción en el poder adquisitivo del consumidor americano. Y esto, por supuesto, no lo quiere Trump. Por el contrario, si la economía crece, que es el objetivo, pues el americano va a sentirse más atraído por los productos de calidad que ofrece Andalucía, por los alimentos gourmet, los alimentos orgánicos, los que son pilar de una alimentación equilibrada, ¿no?, y saludable, que cada vez, por cierto, está más tenida en cuenta en Estados Unidos, sobre todo en los grandes núcleos urbanos. Así que, por lo tanto, tenemos que pensar que esta puede ser una nueva oportunidad, esta nueva era puede ofrecernos una oportunidad al sector agroalimentario andaluz en Estados Unidos. Y si los productores andaluces son capaces de aportar oportunidades de negocio y productos de alta calidad, sostenibles, a precios competitivos, en sus relaciones comerciales bilaterales con Estados Unidos, yo creo que el potencial de crecimiento en este mercado es muy grande, Así que yo creo que es clave que vosotros, en la audiencia, como productores, como empresas agroalimentarias andaluzas, sepáis adaptaros a estas nuevas normativas Y por supuesto que desde las oficinas de Andalucía Trade en Estados Unidos vamos a estar atentos a las novedades, vamos a informar puntualmente y, por ejemplo, hasta el día de ayer, las 37 órdenes ejecutivas que ha firmado Donald Trump, de momento no habla de aranceles. Así que, como diría él, we'll see what happens, pero let's be optimistic. Así que, bueno, muchas gracias y mucha suerte.
Muchas gracias, Michael, por tu visión y por este saludo. Le damos rápidamente la palabra a Uxía Vázquez, directora de la Oficina Andalucía Trade en Canadá.
Hola,
Muchas
buenos
gracias.
días, buenas tardes a todos. Gracias, Benito, por la presentación y por darme la oportunidad de compartir esta visión de Canadá. Yo soy Uxía Vázquez, la directora del proyecto de la Oficina de Andalucía Trade en Canadá. Como os comentaba Benito, estamos en las ciudades de Toronto y Montreal. Tenemos 2 oficinas. Yo estoy en Toronto, pero tenemos compañeras también en la oficina de Montreal. Y me gustaría compartir pequeños datos. Ya Benito dio una perspectiva sobre cómo Canadá se perfila en las exportaciones de productos andaluces, sobre todo en esta parte de productos agroalimentarios, pero a mí me gustaría destacar qué es Canadá y cómo se sitúa en ese marco de Norteamérica. Somos un país de 38 millones de habitantes. Bueno, oscila en los últimos censos, pero menos de 40 millones de habitantes, pero en un país que es el segundo país más grande del mundo. Entonces, eso hay que tenerlo en cuenta a la hora de fijarse en este mercado. Es un país que tiene un poder adquisitivo alto, con un Producto Interior Bruto per cápita de $50.000 estadounidenses, en una economía estable y diversificada y con un sector financiero robusto hasta el momento, y es un país que representa grandes oportunidades porque importamos prácticamente todo lo que consumimos a nivel de alimentación, porque, como sabéis, pues Canadá tiene muchos problemas para poder producir en el clima que tenemos. Entonces importamos más del 70% de todos los alimentos procesados que se consumen en el país. Además, es una sociedad multicultural con una presencia muy fuerte de comunidades europeas y latinoamericanas que influyen en las tendencias del mercado y del consumo, y que yo os invito a explorar. Y además de esto, los productos españoles, los productos europeos en general, suelen tener una visión de productos premium, de calidad y de seguridad alimentaria, sobre todo. Así que son muy apreciados aquí en Canadá, y automáticamente tienen como un perfil prácticamente no de lujo, pero sí de producto gourmet. Tenemos el acuerdo CETA, que es el acuerdo de libre comercio entre Canadá y la Unión Europea, que da muchas ventajas para la exportación a este país, y hay tendencias favorables de crecimiento con productos, como mencionaba Michael, en ese sentido, los productos orgánicos, saludables. Hemos visto un crecimiento muy fuerte en el país. Se sigue premiando la facilidad, ¿no? y el consumo de productos preparados, pero vemos que el consumo de productos frescos y de productos orgánicos y saludables cada vez está más al alza, los productos gourmet y artesanales, y también una expansión muy fuerte de los canales e-commerce y de ventas en plataformas online, que es creemos que es una de las vías que nos queda por explorar para las empresas de alimentación aquí en Canadá. Desafíos que tiene el mercado canadiense, y luego seguramente Mike comentará muchísimo más sobre esto, es tener en cuenta la regulación. Tenemos una regulación estricta que lo controla a través de la CFIA, es la agencia del gobierno de Health Canada, que controla toda la parte de etiquetado y de sanidad. El dominio de grandes cadenas de distribución, es decir, estamos muy concentrados porque la población también está muy concentrada en ciertas zonas del país, y eso favorece de alguna manera a una alta concentración. La dispersión territorial y la concentración de población favorecen la concentración de distribuidores, Y por último, hay una competencia muy fuerte de otros, de otras regiones de España, desde luego, pero también de otros países europeos, productos italianos, productos franceses, y también estamos viendo una fuerte entrada de productos latinoamericanos, sobre todo de Perú, que se posicionan, digamos, de alguna manera en esa dieta mediterránea. Entonces, nosotros vemos muchas oportunidades, pero también creemos que lo más interesante y lo importante es venir a verlas, y por eso pues, os animamos a que participéis en las acciones que organiza Andalucía Trade. Tenemos la misión a SIAL, a la Feria SIAL, que es la feria para productos internacionales más importante que se organiza aquí en Canadá. Este año será en Toronto, en el mes de mayo. Y también, bueno, pues otras misiones en productos frescos y productos transformados que organizamos a lo largo del año. También misiones inversas a las que enviamos compradores canadienses. Cualquier pregunta, cualquier duda, no dudéis en ponernos en contacto con nosotras. Aquí estamos para ayudaros. Un saludo.
Muchas gracias, Usía, por ponernos en contexto.
A vosotros.
Y pasamos la palabra ahora a Jaime Palafox. Muchas gracias, Jaime.
Muy bien, pues nada, muchas gracias Andalucía Trade por organizar este seminario que propusimos. Un poco, yo conozco muy bien a los dos ponentes, Jody Hall, que ha estado trabajando en HEB, y yo creo que debe ser una de las cadenas que más productos españoles, HEB Central Market, que más productos españoles tiene en sus estanterías dentro de Estados Unidos. Y con Mike Carey, que también nos conocemos desde hace muchos años, hicimos un par de actividades. Él ha representado varios productos españoles, aunque, como nos contará, está más especializado en productos de otros países y ahora quiere impulsar la representación de producto español. Yo voy a compartir una presentación que tengo, que, aunque es un poco larga, yo espero y vamos, prometo que me voy a ceñir para acabar en máximo 10 minutos, porque aquí yo creo que lo que nos interesa es oír hablar a los locales, ¿no? Yo voy a dar algunos datos y luego también alguna cuestión más relacionada con mi experiencia. ¿Se ve la presentación?
Sí, sí que se ve.
Se ve, ¿no? Perfecto. Bueno, pues yo voy a hablar también datos. No voy a dar para no repetir, no voy a dar los datos de Andalucía, que ya los ha dado Benito y Mike, pero sí voy a dar datos de España, ¿no? Estos son los datos de exportaciones agroalimentarias a Estados Unidos del último año completo, que es 2023, que fue un año malo, donde las exportaciones españolas cayeron casi un 6%. Sin embargo, yo siempre digo que las estadísticas no hay que ver las estadísticas de un año, porque hay variaciones, el precio del aceite de oliva sube o baja, por poner un ejemplo, y esto hace que a lo mejor en este caso, en el caso de Estados Unidos, donde la mayor parte de las exportaciones, más del 50%, es aceite de oliva, en el caso español, pues hace que cambie. Y a mí siempre me gusta más ver las evoluciones a medio y largo plazo. Aquí tenemos la evolución a 5 y 10 años en el último año completo, y aquí a 5 años las exportaciones se incrementaron de media un 9% y en los últimos 10 años de media un 10%. Eso significa que cada año un 10%, o sea, un 100% a nivel total. Los últimos datos que tenemos todos disponibles del 2024, enero-noviembre, dan un dato que en el caso andaluz era todavía más positivo, pero en el caso español se nos va, en las exportaciones de agroalimentarias se nos van a un 23% de incremento, lo cual pues, ha sido un año muy bueno. Yo creo que también alguien me comentaba, porque el resto de países europeos también han incrementado bastante, que ha habido también un cierto efecto acopio por parte de los importadores, porque con el tema de la entrada de la administración Trump y la posibilidad de que haya que esperemos todos que no, pero nunca se sabe, que haya una subida de aranceles, pues sobre todo en los últimos meses se ha producido un efecto de acopio, ¿no? de los importadores de producto de Europa. En el caso de Canadá, los datos son bastante más pequeños, estamos hablando de unos 450 millones. También el año 23, igual que en el caso de Estados Unidos, fue un año malo, también influido por el aceite de oliva en este caso, y en el 24, sin embargo, pues también se recupera, ¿no? En el caso español, pues un 6%, un 5,9%. Y, de nuevo, los datos a medio plazo, en este caso, en la última fila los podéis ver, 2014-2024, pues un incremento de una media de casi un 9%. Esto es un dato pues bastante positivo, bastante importante y mayor que en la mayoría de los mercados, como luego veremos. Pero a mí no me gusta solo... Y aquí yo creo que podemos ver una de las grandes oportunidades que tenemos en estos mercados, ¿no? Y luego también lo veremos un poquito más detalle. Porque cuando vemos las exportaciones de España y las comparamos con nuestros principales competidores, que son Italia y Francia, pues vemos que estamos bastante por debajo. Y aunque España ha crecido en los últimos años más que Francia y un poquito más que Italia, pues todavía, como bien pone ahí, pues en el caso americano, las exportaciones españolas a Estados Unidos son el 4% del total de las exportaciones agroalimentarias a nivel mundial, mientras que en el caso italiano es el 11% y en el caso francés un 7%. Pues aquí vemos una clara oportunidad que se puede aprovechar. Es decir, si Italia y Francia están vendiendo bastante más que nosotros, pues ahí tenemos una posibilidad de mejora y de poder conseguir acercarnos a los datos que ellos tienen. Si vemos ahora Canadá, pues también vemos que nuestras exportaciones están bastante por debajo de las de Francia e Italia, ¿no? Italia está en 1.200 millones, nosotros en 450 millones en el dato de 2023, ¿vale? Entonces, de nuevo, yo creo que esto pone de manifiesto la oportunidad que tenemos, porque en otros muchos mercados estamos vendiendo lo mismo. En Asia, por ejemplo, España está vendiendo tanto como Italia y como Francia, ¿no? Pues porque en Estados Unidos y Canadá, aunque hay razones de peso históricas, ¿no? Italia tiene una gran comunidad, sobre todo en Estados Unidos y también en Canadá, y eso tira de sus productos, pero bueno, ahí yo creo que estamos a un tercio, posibilidades de mejora, yo las veo clarísimas. Y yo creo que lo que hay que hacer es, como ya se ha dicho, poner más atención en el mercado, tanto en el caso americano como en el caso canadiense, que quizás en Estados Unidos se han hecho bastantes actividades, pero quizás Canadá hasta ahora, y aprovechando además ya se ha citado este acuerdo de libre cambio que se firmó con la Unión Europea hace un par de años, pues yo creo que es un buen momento para dedicar esfuerzos al mercado canadiense, ¿vale? Aquí están los datos del 2024, simplemente a título de curiosidad. Al final, las presentaciones las vamos a pasar a Andalucía, o sea que no me voy a detener mucho más en estos datos para poder ir un poquito más rápido. Aquí es el cuadro de los principales países de destino en el año 23 y qué lugar ocupan Estados Unidos y Canadá a nivel español. Pues en el caso de Estados Unidos es el segundo mercado extracomunitario detrás del Reino Unido, y en el caso canadiense es el número 24. Si vemos este mismo dato para Italia, vemos que Estados Unidos es el tercer mercado para las exportaciones agroalimentarias italianas, después de Alemania y Francia, o sea que tiene una importancia bastante superior al caso español. Y también en el caso de Canadá, que es el 12º mercado. Francia, también, tanto Estados Unidos como Canadá tienen mayor importancia de la que tienen para España. En el caso norteamericano es el sexto mercado, en el caso de Estados Unidos, perdón, y en el caso canadiense el número 15. Más datos: ¿cuáles son las principales partidas arancelarias que exportamos a Estados Unidos y Canadá? Pues en el caso español, aceite de oliva en primer lugar, seguido de vinos, aceitunas, artículos de confitería el cuarto y quesos sería el quinto. Italia, vino el primero, aceite de oliva el segundo, pastas alimenticias el tercero, quesos el cuarto, salsas y preparaciones el quinto. Para Francia, vino el primero, bebidas espirituosas, es decir, bebidas alcohólicas el segundo, quesos el tercero, panadería, pastelería, galletería el cuarto y agua el quinto. Más datos de manera rápida. Esta es una comparativa que voy a pasar muy rápido, pero yo creo que es muy significativa. en el caso del aceite de oliva. Aquí vemos una comparativa de las exportaciones por mercados de aceite de oliva y vemos que esto es el año 2023 y en el 2023, aunque en el 2024 España ya ha exportado a Estados Unidos más aceite de oliva que Italia, en la mayoría de los mercados España está por delante de Italia y, sin embargo, Estados Unidos, Alemania, Canadá y mercados más pequeños como Suecia y Austria, Italia sigue estando por delante. Esto para el 2024 ya no vale porque ya hemos adelantado a Estados Unidos y además la tendencia es que España está exportando cada vez más aceite de oliva, con lo cual lo lógico es que en breve podamos seguir siendo libres en un mayor número de mercados. Pero vuelve a poner en manifiesto lo que comentaba antes, que es que hay una oportunidad de mejora en nuestras ventas a estos dos mercados, tanto en el caso para el aceite de oliva, tanto en el caso de Estados Unidos como de Canadá, es de los pocos mercados donde Italia sigue vendiendo más que aceite de oliva que España. En el caso del vino, la verdad es que es más complejo ahí, al contrario que en el caso del aceite de oliva, en la mayoría de los mercados de Estados Unidos y Canadá incluidos, Italia, ya no digamos Francia, pero Italia, vende bastante más vino. Y luego voy a acabar estos 3 minutos extra que me voy a atribuir con algunos comentarios fruto de la experiencia muy rápidos. El primero es muy obvio, es que Estados Unidos en concreto, y el caso de Canadá podríamos decir lo mismo, no se puede considerar un país, es un continente y no tiene nada que ver el vender en el Midwest, vender en California o vender en Florida, son mercados distintos y así creo que las empresas lo tienen que considerar. El segundo es la importancia del sector gourmet. Esto es un informe que hicieron la oficina de Business France en Estados Unidos, donde consideraban que el tamaño del mercado americano para productos gourmet, lo que allí también se llama muy a menudo specialty food, es el 20%, entre el 20 y el 25% del total del mercado de alimentación y suponen más del 60% del producto importado de Europa, con lo cual hay que poner mucha atención en este mercado, que es donde la mayoría de las empresas se sitúan. Otro segundo punto es la importancia de las cadenas regionales. Luego veremos el listado de los principales operadores, donde, por cierto, está HEV, donde yo voy a desarrollar su carrera profesional, pero además de las cadenas nacionales, es muy importante el poderse acercar a estas cadenas regionales que tienen un número bastante importante de enseñas y un poder de compra importante. Y muchas veces las empresas tratan de pelear por vender en algunas grandes cadenas, luego hablaremos de alguna como Whole Foods o que está más en el segmento gourmet u otras, y sin embargo hay cadenas regionales que están menos atendidas y donde yo creo que las oportunidades son mayores. Aquí está el listado de los principales operadores, aunque el último dato viene del 2023, pero en una reunión interna que teníamos hace un par de días, Jody me decía que el dato de HEV no estaba actualizado y que el último dato que tenía era de aproximadamente 49 millones, con lo cual subiría unos cuantos puestos en este ranking global. En el caso de Canadá, aquí tenéis las principales cadenas, no lo voy a tener en ello porque sé que Mike luego hablará en detalle sobre ello. Luego, hablaba de Whole Foods, ahora ya en manos de Amazon quizás algo menos, pero siempre hay una cierta obsesión por querer vender a Whole Foods. Bueno, tiene 500 establecimientos, está posicionado en segmento medio alto, pero Whole Foods no es todo el mercado. Yo invito a intentarlo, pero es muy difícil vender a Whole Foods. Todos los que conocéis Estados Unidos y, por supuesto, Mike Webby y Mike Carey me lo confirmarán, no es nada fácil, entonces no obsesionarse. Pero sí que nos puede servir bien el indicador, lo que algunos llaman el indicador Whole Foods Market, que es cómo están repartidas las tiendas de Whole Foods a lo largo de Estados Unidos. Entonces, como podemos ver, pues, por ejemplo, en Montana no hay tiendas de Whole Foods. Pues probablemente Montana no sea el mejor mercado donde vender producto europeo, donde vender producto español, donde vender producto andaluz. Sin embargo, hay otras regiones en la costa este, en Florida, en algunos puntos de la costa oeste, donde sí hay. Y yo creo que es un buen indicador el ver dónde hay Whole Foods, aunque luego no le vendamos a Whole Foods, pero ¿dónde hay Whole Foods? Pues aquí es un sitio donde los productos gourmet, los productos specialty y los productos europeos y también españoles y andaluces se están vendiendo más. Y ya por último, unos do's and don'ts de una experiencia personal, precisamente de un evento donde colaboré con Andalucía Trade, entonces Extenda, hace 3 años, y también con Central Market del grupo Ichili. Allí hicimos reuniones con compradores de la cadena y participaron aproximadamente unas 50 empresas españolas, ¿no? Entonces, en la parte izquierda tenéis 2 ejemplos de empresas que lo hicieron muy bien. Una es un pequeño productor de Chacolí, que hizo una presentación súper inspiring, que dicen los americanos, con un storytelling fantástico. Pues bueno, el resultado fue que al cabo de una semana estaban vendiendo ya las botellas en las tiendas de Central Market. Y en el de abajo, donde veis a mí con el comprador de Central Market y con el entonces exportador de la empresa, que él, de una manera muy hábil, pues puso las botellas detrás, y cuando las iba presentando, pues las iba cogiendo detrás y las iba poniendo en la cámara, porque todos sabemos que estas reuniones B2B online pues no son fáciles, ¿no? ¿El resultado cuál fue? Pues que teníamos, no sé si eran 30, 35 empresas, pues de las pocas que fueron seleccionadas, una de ellas fue esta empresa por estabilidad, por esta presentación, y también, por supuesto, porque el producto era bueno, pero esto yo creo que ya se supone, o sea, la calidad ya se supone. Y en las negativas, en los don'ts, pues 2 productos tan fantásticos como el pulpo o la carne de ibérico, pues con una presentación, a mi juicio, no adecuada, pues no consiguieron llamar la atención de los compradores de Central Market y no fueron seleccionados. 2 empresas fantásticas, 2 productos fantásticos, no hicieron la presentación adecuada, no lo consiguieron. Y esto es todo por mi parte. Lamento haberme expedido un poquito más de lo que quería, pero quería contaros esto. Y sin más voy a presentar a Jody, que, como decía, Jody Hall, con más de 25 años de experiencia en H&B, al final como Global Sourcing Manager, encargado de todo la importación y más que la importación, el traer producto del resto de países del mundo, con el cual, como él nos va a enseñar ahora, pues tenemos un par de experiencias conjuntas en el pasado que trabajamos muy bien, y que, como decía al principio, yo creo que H&B es uno de los supermercados de Estados Unidos, el grupo H&B Central Market, que más producto español tiene. Yo creo que tiene mucho que contarnos, porque gracias a su gran experiencia con productos españoles, creo que tenemos mucho que aprender de él. Gracias, y Jody, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Jaime. Joaquin, I'm going to let you share my slides if you would.
Sure.
And as Jaime mentioned, the relationship he and I have spans many years. As a buyer for HEB, early in my career, my very first international trip was to Spain. So I have so enjoyed the relationships with Spanish suppliers over my 34-year career. But as I retired this past year, when Jaime asked me to share a little bit of perspective about the U.S. market related to Spanish goods, I thought it would be very good to be able to show an event called Pasaporte España that took 2 years to plan in 2008, 2008, 2009. Jaime and his team helped Central Market to understand the potential of selling Spanish products to the Texas market. In this short video, we'll explain what was done 15 years ago with Pasaporte España. Adelante. Go ahead, Joaquin. Thank you, Joaquin, for sharing that video. And hopefully what that gave you was a small glimpse of what Central Market did in bringing what we believed was the best products from Spain to the U.S. consumers in Texas. And again, as was mentioned, it was a year-long event just coordinating it. But at the time, the 8 stores throughout Texas in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin, it was a tremendous success. So looking at it 15 years behind, of the 1,000 products that were brought in, many of those products are still in the stores, not only at Central Market, but they've moved over to the 430 HEB stores in Texas and in Mexico. So everything from manchego cheese to tortas from Sevilla that consumers in Texas now have really started to enjoy as part of their diet. I'm going to ask you to advance the slide, Joaquin. And as he's advancing the slides, what we'll do is talk about a little the history of Spain and Texas. Of course, it was the Spanish flag that was the very first flag to fly over the state of Texas. And that heritage that goes back over 500 years is a heritage that Texans are extremely proud of. But as the Mexican flag, the culture in Texas is very, very tied to Spain and to Mexico. So again, products that are part of this heritage are integral. If you advance the slide, please. And the potential for products from Andalucía, I think, could not be better than we are today. Everything from olive oil that was being mentioned by Michael earlier, in this market, the U.S. market for olive oil is tremendous and is growing. But so is it for jamón de ibérico or for manchego or olives. So again, the ag producers in southern Spain and Andalucía, I think you have tremendous potential. If you advance to slide 1, I'll talk about what took place during the pandemic and what has come out after. So there were many tragedies, from the loss of lives to businesses that went under during the pandemic and the COVID lockouts. But one very positive attribute that came out of that event that started over 5 years ago was Americans, and particularly here in Texas, fell in love with charcuterie boards. And again, to be able to go to their supermarket and buy Spanish olives, Spanish manchego, higo, fig jams, or these tortas Inés Rosales, or the chorizos, or the Marcona almonds. These were items that, fortunately, because of working with Jaime in the past, we already had in Central Market and HEB, but the Americans' love affair grew. If you advance one more slide. So during the pandemic, as Americans were locked down at home, or they were working remotely from their home offices, or educating their children at home, or entertaining at home because they were not able to go to their restaurants or travel to Barcelona or Madrid or Sevilla as they had hoped to, they were creating opportunities in their home. And the word that I was familiar with but became very mainstream was sobremesa. So again, as Americans and Texans were saying, hey, come over to my house, or we're going to have a charcuterie board and sobremesa. Over the table, we'll talk about how life is going. So again, this whole love affairs with Spanish products or Italian products or just Mediterranean products really took off. The next slide, if you advance. And as part of this, before the pandemic, HEB sold no charcuterie boards. I just Googled on the HEB website charcuterie boards, and 17 boards popped up. Boards that can feed 8 to 10 people, or that can feed 15 to 20 people. Are single boards for 1 or for 2 individuals. So these are examples of charcuterie boards that are already pre-made in store, but using fine European imported products. And again, it's going to be a toss-up whether they're with Spanish or Italian products. But I'm saying hands down, Americans are falling in love with jamón ibérico, the bellota. And so prosciutto is now taking a back seat to a lot of the finer Spanish meats. From chorizo, and the same could be said for manchego and other Spanish cheeses. They're earning their way into homes and into the tables of Texans. Advance the slide, please. In addition to the cured meats and cheeses, Americans fell in love with Spanish canned seafood. So from pulpo, from octopus to sardines to mussels, all of a sudden, Americans fell in love with canned seafood, and much of that coming from the northern coast of Spain. There was TikTok videos about how Americans were embracing canned seafood in ways that the U.S. market had never done before. And credit goes to Central Market for being a first adapter and moving into this over 5 years ago, early in those days of the pandemic. Because I look at canned seafood in Austin or Houston or Dallas or San Antonio, there's a Spanish influence that has never existed the way it does today. And again, its credit goes to the fact that Americans are loving quality products, and they want to entertain, but they also want to explore. And when the time they were not able to travel internationally, they were exploring by the products that were coming in. But since the pandemic's been over, many of my friends, colleagues have spoken to me about, hey, Jody, you've been to Spain over 40 times. Where do you recommend me go, or where do I take my vacation? So again, tourism back to Spain is increasing dramatically in the U.S., and particularly with Texans heading to Spain. So again, that leads me to believe that there's great upside potential for Spanish products with the U.S. consumers once they return home and they want to recreate their memories, their experiences are the food and the wine that they explored when they were in Spain. If you'd advance forward for me, Joaquin. A very interesting perspective dating back to the 1960s. The food consumed at home was over 70% of the food, and less than 30% was away from home. But over the next 60 to 70 years, that line marked where more food was consumed away from home in restaurants or in bars than it was at home up until 2010. During the pandemic, though, the world changed and people started eating back at home. But with food inflation at 40 to 50-year highs, to go out to eat in a restaurant in the US, whether fast food or casual dining, is very expensive. So again, today, Americans are choosing to eat at home more, and they're eating higher quality. So although food prices are much more expensive today than they were, you see from the chart on the right-hand side that total food sales are increasing, again, as a percent of the disposable income, but the food at home is still outpacing the food in restaurants. If you'd advance the slide for me. As Americans are still dealing with the after effects of the pandemic and illnesses, but also with inflation, one diet has become a driving force in the US, and that's the Mediterranean diet. It's estimated over 80% of the US households are living into elements of the Mediterranean diet as compared to the traditional Western diet. Part of the reason is the consumer spends less by eating healthier. So the Mediterranean diet estimated that US household spends $285 a week if they lived in the Mediterranean diet versus $312 for the Western diet. But I'd call to your attention, the dairy consumed in the Western diet is $14 a week versus the dairy in the Mediterranean diet is 3 times that amount, or $48. So by having more dairy, or certainly more fruits and vegetables, $114 a week in fruits and vegetables versus $21, Americans are eating healthier. And whether it's a Spanish Sevilla orange or it's an artichoke, there are products that are coming into the diets now that are healthier, much along the lines of what the Mediterranean diet has always embraced. And certainly that comes to meats and proteins and seafood. So where in the Mediterranean diet, it's almost twice that of the US Western diet, as seen in this depiction. Next slide, please. So again, the popularity of this Mediterranean diet, a lot of it is around health. There are news stories day after day that are talking about avoid seed oils, soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, and embrace healthier oils such as olive oil. And again, stories of young individuals in their 20s and 30s being diagnosed with cancer. Some of the studies and some of the research is alleging that it's coming from the seed oils. So again, this speaks very positive for the Spanish olive oil producer, because the consumers have already embraced, but now have greater potential to embrace olive oil. At HEB or Central Market for many years, this category has grown double digits year after year. But hands down, the #1 selling olive oil at HEB is Spanish. The Italians are very good at marketing, but the Texas consumer has embraced it. The quality of some of the Spanish olive oils are so excellent. And again, the Mediterranean diet is showing up in many aspects of the way consumers are shopping. Next slide, please. So as I talk about partnering with Andalucía Trade, there has certainly been some very positive things that HEB has done over the years. And an event in Central Market was the Pasaporte España. For many years, HEB had an event called Viva España, and it's savoring the adventure and the flavors of Spain. This program kicked off, if you advance the slide. It kicked off in 2015, ran 2016, 17, 18. But during this time, it took a lot of planning, as we took a team from Texas to Spain. And again, Jaime, thank you, and Veronica for hosting the team that was heading to Alimentaria, but then made its way all the way down to Sevilla and to La Feria. So over the course of those 10 to 12 days, the buyers, the sourcing managers met with over 60 companies. And again, Andalucía Trade and Jordi in the Miami office were very instrumental in helping to pull together many of these supplier visits. Next slide. In the stores, we focus on the deli department, what we call cooking connection with our chefs, our showtime. But there were recipes about how to make a paella or patatas bravas, or how to put together a charcuterie board. There were themed in music in the stores. But the positive thing, all this was 5, 6, 7 years before the pandemic. So when the pandemic occurred, Americans, or in our case, Texans, were already familiar with many of the brands and the products and were enjoying them. But now they could share them with even more of their friends. Next slide. So HEB's website, we took some of the very best of the recipes that were either provided by the suppliers from our Spanish suppliers, or that our chefs developed and further advanced. And everything from a paella to pan con tomate, or the Spanish-style bruschetta. These were products that are found still to this day on HEB's website. And again, when a consumer is looking for a recipe, whether it's for gambas al ajillo, they can find not only the recipe, but the ingredients and the products to buy in their shopping cart. Next slide. In stores, what HEB or Central Market has done is oftentimes as a low price leader every day, whether competing against Whole Foods or Walmart or Kroger, HEB offers incentives, what's called a yellow coupon. There's one coupon, buy a Central Market Spanish extra virgin olive oil and get a second bottle free, or buy the paella bomba rice and get $2 off. Or in the case of you buy Central Market extra virgin olive oil and you get Spanish olives, HEB Spanish olives free. These were examples of the way that these events have helped to drive awareness and trial and exposure in the stores. Advance the slide, please. The displays in the stores, it was not uncommon at all to walk around or see a Spanish flag or the Osborno bull on display, along with Spanish wine, Spanish cheese, Spanish olive oils, and calling to attention the products that were either brought in just for the event or that were part of the permanent assortment that consumers in HEB could shop for. Next slide. Again, the store execution, could not be more proud of the team I worked with at HEB, because they truly brought the best quality to light and educated the consumers how and the stories behind. And that's where, when Central Market or HEB buyers have traveled to Spain or to Alimentaria or to a supplier, they can come back and educate the other HEB employees, and more importantly, the consumer, La Jefa, with regards to what is the quality behind this product and why they should try it or embrace it. Advance the slide, please. Again, the theater in the stores was fantastic, and I'll let you play this short little video here. Having the theater in the store, pouring Spanish sherry, certainly brought attention, and consumers were enjoying the quality, and on the cast you see Andalucía. So again, so appreciative of what the team in Miami.
Hoy no brillan las estrellas porque han visto tu carita y siéntense la de ella. Hoy no.
Gracias, Joaquin. So again, this theater, because consumers talked about it, friends have continued to say, hey, where do I find this product? I tried it when I was shopping at HEB. So again, very, very positive relationships that HEB has had working with trade agencies such as your Andalusian. I'm going to ask you to advance the slide. But again, because I know on this call there are manufacturers, producers, and suppliers, I would also encourage you to consider, if you're ever looking to build and bring your production to the U.S., I'd consider you, or or ask you to consider the state of Texas. Texas's population is second only to California, but in 2023, 500,000 people moved from California to Texas. So right now, Texas is the fastest growing of the 50 states. The economy in Texas has been and is very robust. The population of state of Texas is only slightly smaller than that of the entire country of Canada. But where we sit geographically is halfway between California and Florida, or between Chicago and Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico City. So it's a sweet spot, whether it's for the 340 million US consumers, the 40 million Canadian consumers, or the 120 million Mexican consumers. An example of a company from Spain, from Murcia, is Grupo Arena, and fifth generation Sonia Lopez Jimenez. She moved to Texas with her husband and her son, and they opened Arena's first U.S. operation. Before that, HEB was importing tocino de cielo, flan, rice pudding, other products from Murcia to Texas. But again, Sonia said, La Jefa, the consumer, the boss, is in Texas, so we're going to bring the products closer to the consumer. We were excited about that foreign direct investment because in addition to them selling great quality Spanish recipes that have been in their family over 100 years, they're also producing private label for HEB. And that's indicative by the mango chamoy or the sandia, the watermelon chamoy under the HEB label pictured here. Advance the slide, please. Another example of a Spanish company choosing to bring their technology and their passion and some of their workforce to the U.S. is Congelados Virto from Navarra. Miguel Calataud moved from northern Spain to Houston, Texas. But under his leadership and direction, Blend Core was opened, and it was a win for HEB's consumers because we had great quality Spanish products, whether it was the spinach or the artichokes grown in Spain, but they were bagged and processed in Houston. From that, stir-fried rice to blendables. And blendables are frozen fruits and vegetables that are used for smoothies. But again, Blendcore building a state-of-the-art facility in Houston, Texas was tremendously advantageous for the U.S. market because it allowed products to enter commerce with greater speed. So again, from this perspective, Texas is wide open for business. There are many funds that the governor of Texas and Texas Department of Agriculture are welcoming foreign direct investments to bring your expertise and your passion to the market. But again, we know ultimately those great products that come from Spain will probably have great upside potential. I'm going to ask Joaquin to advance the slide. I'm going to brag on the company I retired from, but 2 weeks ago, HEB was named for the 4th year in a row as the United States best grocer. And again, that was 3 consecutive years, and then we skipped a year, and then prior to that, HEB was #1. But looking at Costco or Aldi or Whole Foods or Walmart, to have HEB be named the #1 retailer in the U.S. and it only operates in Texas, not the other 49 states, was a great tribute to those relationships that this 120-year-old family business has done. So from that perspective, this ends my formal comments. I'm going to ask Joaquin to go forward. But again, muchas gracias. Thank you very much for the opportunity for me to share my passion of all Spanish products, because again, the potential for products from Andalucía in North America, whether from Canada, as my colleague Mike's going to talk about in his relationships with Canadian and U.S. Retailers and consumers next, I think will be very advantageous. So again, thank you, and I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Very tough to follow those two gentlemen, two of the industry's most respected gentlemen, I tell you that. Great presentations. The first obviously spoke of facts and figures. The second demonstrated opportunities, great ideas. and product awareness and so on. So thank you for that. What I'm going to try to do is more speak to you as opposed to present things, because I want to let you know what we are doing as food bev consultants and how we can help, and what next steps could be for all of us. So over the last 15 years, so our first slide, if you can, Joaquin, if you don't mind. Great. So if we go on to the next one. So my personal story began in 1985, but as food bev consultants for the past 15 years, we were representing some great European companies, even a couple of roasted pepper companies like Alguazas and a couple others from Spain in the past. But since then, we've represented some of mostly Italy's largest companies, De Cecco, which is one of the top 3 pasta companies in the world, San Benedetto, which is the largest beverage company in Italy, La Doria, which is the largest pasta sauce producer and tomato company in Italy, or probably in Europe, Granarola, which is the largest dairy company, Co-op, which is Italy's largest supermarket chain. We started a project here for their private label business. We took that from 0 to now they've probably done $50 million in sales in the last few years. Our mission is currently to find the next great companies to represent, and really diversifying ourselves from the Italian set, only Italian, or mostly Italian, I should say. We've started with a couple of Lithuanian companies. We did a project for Latvia, and so on. We cover North America. We have customers throughout the States and Canada, in all sectors. And over the years, we've dealt in every sector, not just food service and retailers. Sometimes we focus just on retailers in North America, but there's a massive market out in food service and hospitality and cruises and casinos and resorts and hotels and so on. Next slide, please. So here I give you a little snapshot of the Canadian market as far as the large retailers are concerned. So we have Loblaws, number 1. I was a buyer for a category manager for Loblaws for many years. $50 billion in sales, over 2,000 supermarkets. Sobeys, our second largest. Metro, Costco Canada, a huge presence. Walmart Canada does very well. We do very well with them. Save-On is in the Western Canada. And then we have a lot of regional chains, like Longo's, Farm Boy, and these are Federated Co-op in Midwest, a couple of hundred stores. But then these other ones are 40, 50 stores. Where it's different is that the Canadian market is still strong, and parts of the United States still strong in the independent set. So when I was running De Cecco, 43% of our sales were done through independent sales. So outside of Loblaws, Sobeys, Metro, Walmart, and so on that we had. So it's a very interesting market, and this is why you should also consider partnering up with importers and distributors in Canada, because they have access to that huge market there. So if we go to the next slide, please. So there are some similarities between the two markets. Obviously, we're classified as 10% of the potential volume over the U.S. To me, it's a little skewed, because in imported products with Italian products, and I'm not too sure about the Italian products, the Spanish products right now. I haven't been able to find those numbers, but with the Italian products, to give you an example, we have stores in Toronto that 50, 60 stores will do what all of the United States will do in certain categories. Panettone, for instance, Italian cakes. We sell more panettone in Toronto than all of the United States. Italian tuna, very similar results. So it's a very interesting market for Spain and for other European producers. So some of the differences are that labeling is very important. In Canada, you need an English and French label. The placing 5, 6 languages in the back of the label does not suffice. You need the exact same, and I mean the exact same, English and French. Whatever you're claiming in the front has to be in both languages. obviously the mill versus or liters versus ounces and so on. Those are some of the other differences in that we also again walk you through all those, handle those things for you. USA has the Food and Drug Administration, while Canada has the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Both these entities monitor food and beverage that enters the North American markets. We have to deal with them. We have to confirm products with them. All ingredients have to be approved and so on. So retailers generally in North America, not just in Canada, but generally do not want to be the importer of record. So if you've never done business in the States, you need an importer of record. So somebody has to take hold of the product. Somebody has to be responsible for the products, for the purchase of the products. This is why we have set up, for many companies over the years, we have set up virtual offices or actual offices in North America, where they have a presence. So now they can be the importer of record, find a third-party warehouse, and then distribute out of there. That's one option to go to market. The second one is finding an importer in that, because a retailer, and Jody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not even sure if HEB really used to go and pick up their own product in Europe, and that most rely on importers or distributors or warehousing situations here that they can draw from or take delivery from. So, and also several U.S. retailers have buying groups such as Damon. A lot of Damon employees have actual offices in the retailers' offices. They handle everything, the day-to-day sales, the pricing, the promotions, and so on. So they're like a buying agent for the retailer within the office. Canada doesn't use that. Only I think Sobeys uses Teeterly in England, but most just deal with themselves. Next slide, please. So why North America? So I think you heard some great reasons why from the previous presentations, well documented how there are opportunities here. Both Canada and US are diverse, open to many opportunities, open to new products, and again, the organic and gluten-free and free from, those are all very popular right now. As Jody mentioned, a lot of people are traveling a lot more, and destinations are Spain, Italy, Portugal, Greece, and when they return, they're looking for those ingredients and those brands that they discovered abroad. There's over 60,000 supermarkets and 750,000 restaurants in North America. The restaurant is a little bit skewed because obviously we're talking about a lot of McDonald's and those types of restaurants, but there's a significant potential for Spanish producers. And as I mentioned earlier, the presence of the independent is still very, very strong. Next slide, please. So why partner with Food Bev? So we have a proven track record. As mentioned earlier, we've taken some companies from 0 to 50 million in sales. We've taken some from 8 or 9 million to 20 million, and so on. We've had Walmart Canada alone. I listed 105 products in the last 5 years. We have some products in some chains in the States with 19,000 stores, things like that. So we tailor solution. We have tailored solutions to meet your needs. So every company is different. Every company has to be handled differently. The basis is similar, but then each one needs a special attention and we do that with tailor-made market studies and so on. Local presence and market expertise. This I'll talk about it after as well, but I think this is the key. Maybe that should have been on its own, because local presence and market expertise is what you need. I've seen it over and over in the years. Let me quickly give you this one example. There are two companies in Italy, Colusi and DeCecco. They both do about over $500 million euros in sales. In the States, DeCecco does about $60 million. Colusi does about $300,000. They should be doing very similar numbers, if not the Colusi being higher. The only difference between them is that Colusi has never wanted to invest in local people. They never want to have a presence here, where DeCecco has a team here. And so there's no better proof than that. So comprehensive market study execution is what we do best. Regulatory and compliance guidance, we walk you through that to get you through the FDA or CFIA and so on. potential representation in Canada, in North America. This is what we're here for. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to see, out of 20 companies, are there 2 or 3 that can become part of our group that we represent on a daily basis. That's the key for us, and hopefully for you too. Strategic market insights, access to extensive network of retailers and distributors, that's for sure. Customized strategies to maximize market entry levels and growth. Expert support to navigate the complexity of the North American market, because at times it can be very complex. Again, we serve customers that have 70 locations up to 19,000 locations, and we're seeking companies to represent in North America. The next one, please. So this is a list of the of things that we do. This is a list of things that we do, and what we're actually offering in this particular session. So we have it's a 2-tier system. So one is this, where we start with this. We give you a contact list, we do a market study, we do potential representation, a QA sessions that last throughout the year to continue to support you in anything that might be happening, even if you're not with us on a monthly basis, let's call it. So what we do is we take your products, we do a nice market study throughout Canada and United States, East, West, and Central. We see who your competitors are, we see what the price ranges are, the pack sizes, the labeling, positioning in stores, and so on, to then determine your go-to-market strategy and your next steps. We have contact lists of up to 8,000 detailed contact lists. A lot of these, we would add our own personal notes, if we know the buyers and everything, but these come with full, these are $5,000 lists. I mean, they come with full information of the buyer, email addresses, phone numbers, how many stores they have, and so on. Potential representation is obviously what we're after. We want to find great companies to represent. And then what we do, as I mentioned, is the QA session. We have a bi-weekly session like this, that you come on board and everybody just ask questions, or send them ahead of time, or send them privately and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this. I'm wondering about this packaging. I'm wondering about the FDA rule here. Do you know any importers? Do you know, we have addresses of warehouses and distributors, and so on. So those are the things. We normally charge 5,500 euros for this full service that you see as a one-time fee, but we do offer some group discounts. So if you guys get together and for the group, then we can do something. We can definitely do a discount, and then that would be handled through my colleague Jaime. Next slide, please. So that's it in a nutshell. So as I said, we have a precise reason for what we're offering. We obviously hope that dealing with us will increase your business, but also your region and Spain in general, exports for Spain's will increase, and so on. And I think that's the ultimate goal here. If everybody wins, and I think it's a great opportunity, because the more that we do as a group, the more that can be invested in, whether it's trade shows that we have access to and discounts for, that we walk you through several great trade shows, opportunities, or other opportunities that arise through the year. We'll be here for. So feel free to contact Jaime and myself for any verifications or additional information. And we hope that we thank you so much for your time, your valuable time, and we hope that we can do some business together in the future.
Thank you very much, Mike. Sí, yo quería aclarar esto. Como dice Mike, estamos trabajando conjuntamente en este proyecto, y efectivamente, si hubiera un grupo de empresas interesadas, pues lógicamente podríamos negociar un precio conjunto que fuera más asequible, simplemente como a título aclaratorio. Y ahora, pues no sé, Benito, si hay preguntas, yo creo que es el momento, ¿no?
Efectivamente, ahora es el turno de las preguntas, dudas, comentarios. A todo el mundo puede intervenir.
Pues si no hay preguntas, yo rompo el hielo. Me gustaría, I would like to ask both Mike and Jody, in Spain, it has been 2 weeks that everyone is talking about the same thing, no? In the news, Donald Trump and the possible increase of duties, no, and taxes. How do you see that? I like the presentation of Michael. We've been talking about it from the American side, and I would like also to have your opinion on that. How do you see it? Actually, before that, I have to say, because I was asked also last week from the press, and what I do is to analyze the data. And when you analyze the data, you see that 1 year the exports from Spain went down around 15%, but then they recovered quite rapidly. So after 5 years, you didn't notice that these tax increases. Of course, that's in general. If you are talking about olives or black olives, this is a different thing, of course. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion? What do you think? What do I always ask? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. Well, I think it's still going on. I think I don't know how much has been set in stone yet from Trump. I know there's been some issues with tariffs that he was claiming from Spain. I find it very strange. I find it very strange because we know that Spain produces the most olive oil. Then you have Italy and Greece and other countries, and that California produces what seems to be a lot of oil. In California, there's a lot of olive groves, but they produce probably 1% of the world production. So they cannot handle. He can't go to do this with olive oil around the world because there's too much. The consumption's too high right now. It's not a gourmet product anymore. It's a daily product. And as you said earlier, as I can't remember, I think it was you that said earlier, or Jody was mentioning, the consumption of seed oil is frowned upon. So olive oil will continue to take first ranking. Olives, I think, are in the same thing, and the jamón ibérico and other hams like the prosciutto crudo from Parma. These are things that you can try to replicate. Maybe the prosciuttos from Italy you can replicate a little easier than the ones from Spain. But these are still very things that I think, first of all, I think they're things that people will pay a little more for. But this is where the negotiations between companies like ours and retailers and that come into play. Everybody takes a little less to weather this storm, whether if tariffs do come in, and keep prices reasonable. I think over the next 4 years anyway. But we'll see. Unfortunately, I wish I had more information, and after February 1st, we probably will have more information.
Not easy to foresee what's going to happen, that's for sure.
Correct.
Jaime, I'll give my perspective. I've dealt with international trade challenges in 3 decades, and I'll say the European Union and the U.S. have had trade disputes that dated back to my very first trip to Spain when I was buying mandarinas, mandarin oranges. So the Trump administration, and if we just think back to 7 or 8 years ago, Donald Trump was saying NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever, tear it up. Part of it was, and it is who he is, it's his negotiating strategy, it's his tactics, it's part of his art of the deal. NAFTA was not torn up, but it was renewed, and it became better and stronger. Are there still opportunities to improve NAFTA that will benefit the Canadian, US, and Mexican market and consumers and producers? Yes. So the trade issues right now that are on the table as a possibility with Canada and Mexico are still part of that negotiating strategy. China is separate. We'll keep that out there. But even with Colombia over the weekend, there was possibilities of Colombia having 25 to 50% tariffs. All of that was rhetoric. It's not the case. But if we think back 4 years ago when Boeing and Airbus had their trade dispute decided in World Trade, WTO, it ruled in the favor of the U.S. and Boeing. So it allowed the Trump White House at the time to put tariffs against European imports, but it was carousel. They focused on Italian hard cheese or Spanish green olives, or it was on Scottish whiskey. But those were not permanent, they were rotational. And if there were to be an aspect of some tariffs with Canada or Mexico or Europe or specifically Spain, my opinion, it will be isolated to sectors, because the U.S., in the case of olive oil, 98% of the olive oil consumed in America is imported. Texas and California produce less than that 3% of what we domestically use. So it's incumbent upon the U.S. to allow Spanish olive oil or Italian or Greek or Tunisian. So again, my perspective, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of hot air, but part of it may not materialize into actual tariffs as much as it will be in establishing, hopefully at the end of the day, better trade relations.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to, one thing I forgot to mention earlier to everybody, when I was ending my speech, the important thing for you guys, if you haven't done anything yet in the States, or if you haven't attempted to, or so on, or have done very little, start. You have to start, whether it's with us or by yourselves, which I wouldn't recommend because of all the challenges, or with another agency. It's fine, but start doing something, because time is passing. I had hair and a black beard. Now I don't have hair and a white beard. So time passes and continues to pass. And the longer you delay your start, the longer it will take for you to have a foothold in the North American market, or any other market, really.
Great. I have one question for Rich, for Mike, and for Jody. For Mike, you have mentioned that you have you work with a very wide scope of products, but which could be the products for you that have more potential? I mean, if you could be more specific.
Sure. Well, as Jody mentioned, the idea of the charcuterie board and cheese and ham in general have really taken off. I actually have a thing called on Instagram called the cheese review, and I could use more followers if you guys are interested. And so it just shows you, the excitement around the people wanting to learn, and the traveling more and trying things more. I think they're more open to opportunities and trying things more now. I've studied olive oil at UC Davis in California, so I'm very well versed in olive oil. So that's something that I always have interest in. And I used to buy over $4 billion a year in products, so I'm interested in very many. But I think the ham, cheese, olive oil continues to be a thing. But I think novelties. Jody mentioned the tins, the seafood in tins. That to me is growing slowly, but growing, and I think can be promoted more. I was in a restaurant in Boston that's all they served. It's a beautiful restaurant, and they only had tin food. So, but you can imagine some of the best Portuguese and Spanish and Italian tins. So I think the trend is a good one, and I think this is what retailers are looking for. And Jody probably could speak to it better than me, but what they're looking for, some diverse products, new products. Show us something new. Not always the same olive oil and tomatoes and pasta and rice and so on, and beans. What else do you have that's special that we can promote and have fun with, and so on. And I think the idea of the festival, I did it for when I worked for a company called Primo Foods, and we had the old El Paso Mexican line. We used to run a lot of these promotional activities, fun nights, weekends, music, and I think those are great opportunities for us. Promoting products through those events. But again, I think cheese, ham, olive oil continues to be, and novelty items, which are not novelty to Europe, to Spain and to Europe, but novel to us in North America.
Lovely. That's great. Thank you. And one question for Jody and Jaime. You have mentioned the regional chains of supermarkets. What is the best way to approach them? Any piece of advice, or how cool, you know?
Jody?
Okay, I'll give my perspective.
Yes.
There's certain regional retailers that do not have their attention on Europe or on imports. So again, it's trying to assess, do they have an appetite or do they have an assortment? And you could go through retailer by retailer. That's one of Jaime's slides was United States. It's not a country, it's a continent. And again, you look across the 50 states, you have some regional retailers that are not, they're basic in their assortment. But finding those retailers that are regional, that are expansive in their assortment, and I will call out Wegmans and Publix as two examples. Those retailers understand and they see the opportunities, or they have consumers that want to explore new foods, new cultures, new cuisines. So I would certainly start there. Some of these retailers are traveling to Alimentaria or to Anuga or Cial. Even understanding from the buying list of retailers that are traveling to international shows is a great way to start, to understand, hey, this is a regional retailer that's already out looking. So that's my perspective. I'll turn it over to Jaime for his.
So my experience.
Sorry, Jaime. Just to go online with what Jody was talking about. To that I would add a couple other stores like Whole Foods, Fresh Thyme, Fresh Market. You know, Giant Eagle wants to be more of a player like that. The one key thing though, as opposed to who the opportunity could be, is how. The one thing that they want to know, what I was alluding to earlier about having representation here, or having somebody, or a virtual office, being an importer of record and so on. Most retailers, one of the main first questions they're going to ask you is, do you have current distribution in the States? They don't want to deal with somebody, most of them, you know, if there's 100 good retailers, 98 don't want to deal with somebody where they have to worry about picking up in Europe, worrying about their own imports and so on, and worrying about inventory. They want to know that you're going to have inventory locally, domestically, and they basically want to treat you as a U.S. company, but with sorry, I keep saying Italian, but European products or imported products, and you have distribution available for them. And they know that you're going to hold a few months of inventory because, as we know, being out of stock is the absolute worst thing for a retailer. So, to me, this is where it becomes important. Is it's not just contacting a retailer, because you contact most retailers, even if they're interested, they're going to say to you, okay, now what do you want me to do? I'm not going to bring in a container worth of product or 2 containers worth of products, and because some have 7 or 8 distribution centers. Then they have to worry about getting it to the various distribution centers. They want to know that you have inventory and you'll ship skids or trucks to their distribution centers, or they'll pick up from your distribution center. Sorry, Hank.
My experience, and agreeing with both what they said, is that it's somehow funny. At the end, I have to say it depends a lot on the person, and you have Jody, who by very different reasons he's in love with Spain, and I found other guys from regional that were also like Spain, and this is also important. And what we also did at that time is try to. We all know that there are several companies which are specialists in Spanish products, importers, and they have their clients, and then try to support them, to support these importers, and try to convince them. Because if you do a promotion in a regional chain, a small regional chain, where some products from one importer are already there, the first person who's going to benefit from that is this importer. But at the same time, you can bring other products and be present there. This is more or less from the general point of view. And because for an individual company, I think it's not going to be so easy to go, as he was saying, to go, as Mike was saying, to go direct to regional companies. It's better to try to be in a pack somehow and try to go with the whole pack, because there are more. I remember going to San Luis and eating in a Spanish restaurant called Barcelona, which I didn't expect at all. So I mean, you have plenty of Spanish food, more and more Spanish food, not in Montana, as we were saying, probably not in Montana, but in a lot of states. So I think you have to take that, do some research, as Mike was proposing, and focus very much.
El sonido está en una videoconferencia del mercado americano y demás.
No, I was saying that trying to focus and work a lot and follow the people and try to convince them that your product is the best. That's the only way.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think Uxie has a question.
Yes, I have a question. Well, thank you so much for all of the insights. They are really interesting to see. I have a question for you, Mike. In particular, you were talking a lot about this difference or this move towards, well, importer companies asking if you have an importer of record or trying to move away from having to deal with all of the logistics and the import parts. To what extent are you seeing that in Canada? Do you see that more companies coming from Europe are establishing themselves as their importer of record to equip themselves with the distribution here in Canada?
Yeah, I get your question. A little less. Really, we have a handful of important companies, right? We have Loblaws, Metros, and Sobeys, and then we have Costco and Walmart. Even in a situation like Walmart, I launched 100 products at Walmart at one time. And even in that situation where we had, to give you an example, at one point we had 200 containers of pasta and 200 containers of tomato products and things. They were all still going through our warehouse. So they don't even with incredible volume, sometimes they don't. Now we have different situations where Sobeys or Loblaws, they're picking up in Europe. They're literally picking up either Ex-Works or FOB port, Italian port. So they're a little more active in the international set. Sobeys utilizes Teeterly in London. That is like a buying arm for them, and they arrange shipments and everything from there. So again, we only have that 5 to pick from, where the States there's 55 to pick from that are on a serious level. But I find the Canadian ones will deal with you directly, or could deal with you directly. Metro, not as much, which is our third largest chain. Costco, not really. Yeah, yes and no, and then Walmart, probably not. They definitely want a local distributor because realistically, some of these chains have strict policies, and they fine you a lot. We've been fined by Walmart in situations where we went to ship something and for a 2 o'clock delivery, we got there at 1:45. They took us in at 3 o'clock and charged us a late fee. So if they're doing it themselves, they have nobody to fine and so on, right? So they like for somebody to hold inventory for them.
Okay.
No sé si hay alguna pregunta más. Bueno, pues creo que no. Bueno, pues entonces lo dejaríamos aquí. Nos hemos pasado unos minutitos, pero bueno, creo que ha merecido la pena abrir este turno de preguntas y creo que hemos conseguido un poco el objetivo del webinario, ¿no? Que era explorar esas oportunidades de negocio que había. Se ha quedado demostrado el potencial que aún tienen estos dos mercados y creo también que el webinario ha servido para construir esa red o ampliar esa red de contactos interesantes que nos pueden ayudar a abordar estos dos mercados, ¿no? Con Jaime, con Jody, con Mike y con los compañeros de Andalucía atrás, ¿no? Con Michael y con Uxia. Yo creo, pues que...
Benito, muy importante. Michael, por favor. Very important to learn that the specialty foods are a hot thing in North America. So let's go for it, because Andalucía has plenty of specialty foods, plenty of gourmet foods, plenty of Mediterranean diet, good stuff. So go for it.
Yeah. So the market is there.
It's a good conclusion. Very good conclusion.
Well said.
Muy bien. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos.
Gracias. Un placer.
Gracias.
Thank you so much.
Gracias.
Un placer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one thing.
Yes, of course. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Don't feel that we need to be doing business together in order to, if you guys, anybody needs anything, any information, whatever, feel free, send us an email. We'll help in any way we can, whether we're doing business together or not. I mean, we're all in this together. We're in the same industry, and I think it's a great industry, and let's keep growing.
Great. That's good to know.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Adios.
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.
Gracias.
Bye.